Hi guys, welcome to our lesson. So today we are going to focus on classifying numbers, right? What is a number? I know that we use that word loosely, right? Number is 5. Yes, that's true, but what exactly does that mean? What are numbers, right? How do we classify numbers in mathematics so that when we get to the algebra that we need to do based on these numbers, then we are clear on what we are talking about. But for now, let's just look at our leading questions for this concept that we are going to do. So, have you ever thought about what is a number? Also, do all numbers have the same properties, right? And what are these properties that we are talking about, right? That makes the numbers to be different from one another, because that's what we are trying to talk about. But before that, we need to understand what a number is, and then we're going to talk about numbers, which we divide them into real and non-real numbers. And then with the real, they are divided into two branches, which is rational and irrational. And then rational is the one that has a lot of other branches with it, but irrational is just on its own. And then also with non-real numbers. But we'll talk about what non-real numbers are and why we also try to focus on them. Now, the key concept here is some of the most important building blocks of mathematics are, we know that, are numbers, operations, and relationships. Now, as easy as this sounds, I promise you, the building blocks of the whole entirety of mathematics are numbers, operations, and relationships. When you talk about functions, right, graphs, it's a relationship between an independent and a dependent. So that's a relationship. That's what makes graphs what they are. When you talk about geometry and equations, there's some equality that we are talking about there, which is a relationship that we are talking about, right? And there is times where we compare two things to say this is in ascending order, so one is bigger than the other as you are moving along, right? So what exactly is that about? That's an inequality. That's a relationship of mathematics, right? So that's what makes maths, the whole entirety of maths. I promise you, although it has all these nice concepts, they are all made up of either all three or one of the three: numbers, operations, and relationships. Now let's look at them individually and see what I'm talking about. So, what do we know? You need to think about a simple sentence, right? 1 + 2 = 3. I know you know this is true, right? We can even press our calculator, it will give us 3. But now, what makes a number here? The 1, the 2, and the 3 will be classified as the numbers here, right? So these would be the numbers. And then from there, the plus will then be classified as the operation of this particular sentence. And then lastly, the equal symbol here will be classified as what we call the relationship of this particular number sentence. So the relationship is that if I add 1 to 2, I must get 3. You see, so if I add 1 to 2, I'm supposed to get 3. And that's what we are talking about when we say maths is made up of these 3 building blocks. Now, numbers with similar properties can be arranged or grouped together to form a set. Now, the most important thing here will be a set, right? So a set will mean a group of numbers based on their properties. Based on their properties, right? So that's what we are talking about when we are saying a set of numbers. So we're going to call numbers natural, we're going to call them whole, we're going to call them integers. That will be because of the fact that they have some similarities, and some similarities are even going to overlap. You are going to see that. So the very first one are natural numbers, are counting numbers, right? So natural numbers is the very first type of number we can talk about. These are sometimes also called the counting numbers. Now here I want you to tell me, right, or rather think about this. When you are counting, what exactly are you doing? One, where do you start, right? Where do you start counting from? So let's say you go to a farm, right? Or you go to a classroom and you want to count how many of your classmates are in class. How do you start? Where do you start? Which number do you start at? That's the first question. The second question is, as you are counting, exactly what are you doing, moving from one number to the other? How are you doing that process? Are you subtracting? Are you adding? Are you timesing? Are you dividing? What exactly are you doing? Are you skipping a number? That's what I want you to think about. And this is what will assist us in answering what is a natural number. So let's see. So a natural number, as I'm saying, is a counting number. You need to think about this process of counting, right? We know 1, 2, 3. So where do I normally start? We normally start at 1 because you can't start at 0. But I am yet to see a person who says, I am starting to count how many cattle or how many people we have or how many sweets I have, and they say 0, 1, 2, because then it would really not make sense. What number is 0? And then also, what do you really do when you are counting, right? You know that you are always adding 1 each time, right? If you are counting in terms of natural numbers. But this does not necessarily mean that it's only adding 1, because you can add a 2 to make it even, you can add a 3, and then at all times it will give you something. Now, the symbol for natural numbers is normally an or, and that looks like that, right? So it will be like something of this nature. This is how some textbooks use, and some textbooks just use an N as is, right? And these will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see you're going up by 1 each time. You're going up by 1 each time in order to get the numbers that you have there. And then all these numbers are positive numbers. Excuse me, because we cannot have natural numbers as negative. So natural, because you are counting, you cannot have -5 people. That does not make sense. Hence, it's positive numbers. It can be both odd and even numbers. So you can be counting the people in 2s, or you can be counting them as odd numbers, right? If you're counting in 2s, you know that's even numbers, and then if you jump, you count in 3s, we can call it, right? 1, 3, like that. So you're jumping 2 each time. And then the operations that we use in order to move from one number to the other is a plus and a times. So what I simply mean is, for me to move from the first number to the second number, I can add 1, which will give me 2. This is still a natural number, right? Or I can then multiply by 3, right? Or let me not use 3, let me use 2, because I want to make a point with the same number, which is 2. I can multiply this by 2, and it will still give me 2, right? So I can use either addition or multiplication, but I cannot use subtraction and division, because if I subtract numbers, yes, 1 minus 2 will be a negative number, which is no longer a natural number. But if you're minusing from a big number to a small number, it does give you a positive number. And then, are all numbers natural numbers? We need to think about that, right? You use the operations of subtraction to talk about this. Now, we also have what we call whole numbers, which are symbolized by n with a superscript, with a subscript, I mean, of 0, right? A circle there. And this normally starts from 0. And what you need to note about these numbers is they are not all positive numbers, right? Because 0 is not a positive number, but they are also not negative numbers, right? So these numbers are neither positive or negative. Some of them are positive, not that all are positive. And then 0 is not an odd or even an even number. So whole numbers are not only odd or even numbers. And then the operations that we use here are still plus and multiply. So that's what we are talking about when we say we have a natural number, which is a number we use to count, and a whole number, which normally means a whole, right? So 0 would be a placeholder to say, where exactly is this? So that's how we look at numbers. But for now, I want us to take a quick ad break. When we come back, we're then going to look at some other numbers that we classify based on some properties that they have. Like they might be negative, they might be fractions, and all of that. But for now, let's take a quick ad break. I'll be back just now.